want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
We are the Madmen of Masculinity.
Your home for healthy masculinity. We're just real men having real conversations for you.
Hey.
You know what I'm saying to
It's that
you?
time, baby.
You know what I'm saying to you, ladies and gentlemen? You can't handle the truth.
You can't handle it. You may want it, but you can't handle it.
Yeah, there's a lot of things you want, but you can't handle.
That's right.
Hey, I am Kirk M. Samuels.
And I am Jason B. Kendrick.
And we are the Madmen of Masculinity.
That's right. We're just real men having real conversations for you.
For you.
And if you notice, there's a third gentleman in the picture tonight.
Yeah.
If you're on the radio, you can't see him, but he's here. You'll hear him. Mr. Jude Sandvall, welcome.
If you want to see what he looks like, then go online.
You better go on YouTube.
There you go.
He's a dapper looking dude.
I'm sorry, ladies, he's got a girlfriend, but you can look.
Why you put him out like that, man?
Because I'm trying to help the man out.
Hey, I think my girlfriend may have just texted him to let him know
Is that what that is?
Got to have a disclaimer on this show because it is the Madmen of Masculinity show.
Like that.
I'll have a conversation with her later then, I guess.
It's very rare that we actually have guests on here. The only other guest that we've had on was my son before he went to boot camp. And so it's very rare. Normally we have, just these deep conversations between the two of us, man. So welcome to the rarefied air, man.
Well, and I think individually, I've had deep conversations with each one of you, just separately, right? We've never done it as a threesome, so it's kind of exciting, right? Yeah. Never had a threesome.
Pretty much
before,
is,
right?
Man. It's like
It's on radio.
Sorry, this is family friendly. I forgot. That's why I put my daughter outside of the recording studio to listen this morning. She's doing her homework.
So Jude is very inappropriate, as we have learned, which we love. We love that around here because that fits right in.
Fits in with us.
You got a beep button?
Like
no.
Nikki's got it.
Nikki's got it back there.
Okay. She has a bat too, so every time she has to use that button, you'll be hitting about the head and neck
good
with
to
it.
know.
So just be prepared.
We crushed that head. So this is a continuation of the conversation we've had. We started off over a month ago. We decided to have one conversation about the effects of divorce on men, and we realized 3/4 of the way through that there was no way in the world we were even going to sniff the surface of that topic. So there's been 4 since, and then we decided, okay, let's bring this plane in for a landing. This horse is dead, kind of, or at least beat the snot for now. So then we're like, okay, let's bring in the heavy hitter.
Yeah, we got to bring the expert in.
We got to bring in the heavy hitter.
Y'all love listening to us, but then they're like, we need to bring the expert in.
We got to bring somebody that, we bring him in the back cleanup. Yeah. But here's the deal. Jude. We need you to confirm everything we've said over the last month.
Okay.
I know you haven't watched every episode, but everything we said, just nod.
Anything that contradicts anything we said is going to be edited out. Just for the record.
Just nod and smile.
Yeah, just for the record.
So it's going to be a short episode? Is that
not that short. We can stretch it out. Don't worry.
Yeah. And so, we've been off of this premise that I'm a 2-time offender in terms of divorce. And
a 3-time avoider.
And so JBK, on the other hand, has not been down that road, kind of intentionally somewhat. And so, so we were coming at it from 2 different perspectives, right? I mean, somebody that's been there, somebody that's like not been there, which is a great thing. And I would highly recommend somebody wait longer than not.
Somebody that's smarter than us, and somebody who's a slow learner, right? And then somebody who's in between.
Yeah. So how about we not butcher your introduction, and we'll allow you to share with the world who you are and what your passion is and what you do in this here green earth.
Sure. No, my name is Jude Sandvall. I'm the founder of the Divorce Dadvocate, and the Divorce Dadvocate is a community that I created to help divorcing dads through the process, because it was the genesis was out of my own high conflict divorce that included infidelity, substance abuse, money problems, you pretty much name it, and I've experienced it. And so what I found through my experience was that there was just not a ton of resources out there for divorcing dads. There's a lot of resources out there for divorcing mothers, which is a great thing, and that's helpful. But for dads, it's kind of disparate. It's kind of challenging, and so I started to do that about 2 years ago, and just with a podcast and with some private coaching, and it's just absolutely exploded and it's across the world. I thought I was going to start this in Denver, Colorado, have a little practice, do some meetings, and have some guys, and then just help. And the podcast is in over 150 countries and 1,500 cities across the world. We have guys from the Philippines and in Ireland and Singapore and everywhere that come into our meetings. And so, unfortunately, bad news is the divorce is prevalent across the world, and unfortunately, it's normalized as well.
Yeah.
And
So it's not just an American thing.
no,
So, I mean, guys have kind of some universal struggles regardless of where we are in the world.
yep, absolutely.
Well, it's nice. I'm curious, though. My first question is, do you think the lack of support for men after divorce is just a kind of cultural thing, or is it more of a lack of men asking for support, and that's why it just hasn't been brought forth?
I think it's based upon our nature, our masculine nature. It's challenging. Well, a couple of things. One, it's challenging for us to ask for help and support. That's just, I think we all know that as men. Asking directions, right? It's challenging, let alone for asking for real difficult and challenging support around a difficult and challenging circumstance in our life. The other part is naturally, and this was why I niched this down to dads, is because our masculine nature has some key, specific, distinct ways in which we go through the divorce process, and the other part is that men don't build community as easily and as quickly as women build community. And so when a major life circumstance like this comes up, like divorce, we're a little bit devoid of having that support in each other, et cetera, that we need to get through it.
See, y'all, we said that. We told y'all you need to have a community. You need to have support. You need to make a support plan if you haven't already, just in case, like life insurance.
Yep.
You hear from the expert right here. Men struggle with that support piece.
Yeah, and you need to do it before something comes up. And so
That sounds familiar. Wow, brilliant.
do we check 2 boxes right
So
there?
far, so good.
We're doing
Checks in
good
the
then,
mail,
right?
Jude. Checks in the mail.
Absolutely.
But yeah, with the lack of men asking for support or even being aware they need support, because so many guys are just we're not emotionally educated, and we're so taught to suck it up and rub some dirt in the wound and just move it on, that when you get to something so life-changing and traumatizing as divorce, having that support is so necessary. So it's good to know that someone like you is really focusing on that and putting that platform out that's worldwide, so maybe they can just Google search, like, what do you do as a dad for divorce? Oh, the Dadvocates. Okay, let me look at this and get some sort of input and information, something to guide them down the right path.
But to your point, to have a support structure beforehand, which not a support structure in terms of having your attorney lined up and all that kind of stuff.
Hopefully you're not planning that,
hopefully,
right?
hopefully we're not talking about that. Support structure in terms of being surrounded by a circle of guys, period. One of the ways that the primary way that we connected with you was through Be Men,
Right.
Through another community that we are a part of and active in. Shout out Zach. That's just, I mean, it's not necessarily directed to divorce, but it's just guys sharing life. And to your point of, it's not very common for guys to connect, but to have that connection before you even get to the point of a life collapse, critical.
Yeah, and we get, and I'm speaking like this whole time from the perspective of a dad, because that's what I work with. I am a dad, and we get in these family units and family structures, and what happens when we get married is then that kind of revolves, all of our social life and everything else revolves around the family, which isn't necessarily bad, but still keeping some of that, those interests and some of those outside activities and doing that is really, really critical to not only being healthy, but then, like you said, when things don't work out in life, like a divorce, and you still have that structure. You still have those guys, Jason and Kirk and Zach and Alan and Scott and some of the other guys that I'm fortunate enough to be involved with, you guys and others and some of the organizations that I didn't do, right? So I had one friend going through divorce. That was my soul. That was my sole support system.
Is he still your friend now?
That he's not.
Wow.
All right. But so that's tough because you don't have, and I was blessed truly to have at least one friend, because a lot of guys, and I've got a good friend now who's been on my podcast, and he's a former Mr. Universe. I mean, this guy's a high achieving man that has been a multimillionaire, Mr. Universe, and great. And he always tells this story about how when he was going through this work, he was just isolated, and he would literally work, and you'd come home, close the shades, and then he'd just cry in bed or be upset, and he'd just get up in the morning and then he just powered through it. And he said that was the worst thing that he could have possibly done, and he's still working through some of the issues that he dealt with and came up through the divorce. So yeah, build that community, keep that community. It's not only healthy for if you're going through divorce, but it's just healthy in your own life, and it'll be healthy in relationships. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we were talking about, I think, on the last episode, is having those outlets and having those friends on both sides will more likely help you away from divorce. It'll help your relationship, and it's definitely, like you said, necessary to have those if you're going through divorce, but you may even avoid it if you have those outlets and those people to bounce ideas off of or talk to or to engage with.
Yeah, here's a little secret. Your woman was attracted to you because of something cool that you did or you wanted or you were involved in or that was unique to you. So when you get into your relationship and you lose some of that, or family, you might be losing some of that attraction. She might be losing. So keeping that fresh and finding new things or new activities or new hobbies or interests or learning new stuff is really an attractive thing to your partner. So keeping that and putting the family first is okay in some regard, but you got to take care of yourself because you can't take care of them if you don't.
And I firmly believe that my time with guys, just in guy spaces, doing guy things with a guy or multiple guys, helps me to be a better man in the area of my relationships because it sharpens my masculine saw.
Yeah.
And I don't start to bleed off that masculine energy into the feminine world of nurturing and relationships and all those kinds of things. I get to keep that, and I get to bring that back. I get to offer that level of connection, that level of like I said, just that masculine saw. I get to sharpen that over and over again.
Yeah, and hopefully you and I and Jason and everybody else is we're calling people to what we're designed to be and the masculine nature we're supposed to have. Because if we've got healthy male friends and male relationships, we're doing that.
Speaking of
healthy male friends and relationships, we're gonna have some healthy breaks.
Sometimes you gotta take a break to be healthy.
Time to take a break.
Sharpen that saw.
Men and Masculinity on KLDC 1220 AM in the Mile High City. We'll be right back. I want to double check this thing and see.
And obviously, if you're watching this online, we're taking a break, but you get to hear our banter and all that kind of good stuff until we come back.
Yeah, and if you are watching us online, leave a comment. How's Jude sound? How do we sound? Like, what's going on? Because sometimes we rig this up in the last minute.
I want comments on the beard.
Yes,
gray beard and no, the gray beard.
Yeah.
And the girlfriend's listening after she just texted Jason. We're gonna take a poll, honey. So if you love it, I think it looks semi-homeless.
What's that for men? The beard.
I was thinking of getting that and start
just rushing.
There it is. Just for men.
I say just for men. Not that I know anything about that. I'm just saying.
Oh, is that how you keep it?
That's just saying.
That's how you keep it up top.
That's just saying, man. Hey, all right. You putting too many people's business out there. All right? You mind your own business tonight. You talking about you mind your own business, man. Don't be putting me on the street dry snitching.
Hey, I've got some insider info on a very prominent news anchor in the Denver metro area that does use that little spray stuff.
Oh, behind the scenes.
On his lid. I'm not gonna say who it is, but
I'm not surprised at all.
They're so vain.
I'm not surprised. So if you're watching us live right now as we record this, if it says we're live on your screen, if you go to the Mad Men of Masculinity page on Facebook, Mad Men Radio on Facebook, and you type in a comment, we'll see it live. JPK will make you famous. And we'd love to hear your feedback, your input.
Yeah, tell us how much you hate us right now, how crazy you are.
Yeah, we're okay with that.
We're okay.
But if you come at us wrong, you're gonna get some of this. You'll get some baby powder on the hand. Some baby powder. What did the 5 fingers say to the face? Slap. All right, here we go.
Take a break.
We are back. Mad Men Radio, Mad Men of Masculinity, 12:20 a.m. on the FM dial. I mean, no, AM on the FM dial, on the AM dial, and on the interwebs everywhere. Hey, I went to public school, man. I mean, keep it real. I'm just a regular dude, man. You know what I'm saying?
It's still radio.
I'm just a regular dude, man. Just a regular dude. Super producer Nikki Nicole's on the ones and twos back there on the other side of this big old screen.
Thank you so much
that we have in front of us. She's doing her thing.
Thank you for making it sound
decent. And all those kind of good things.
And if you notice, there's a third voice that seems to be popping up on this episode. Mr. Jude Sandvall is here in studio with us. He is the divorce Dadvocate. I mean, and I thought this was his part-time gig. This man, full-time, this is what he does, and he is a wealth of knowledge when it comes to men and divorce and how that looks and how to be supportive and how to get out of your life, basically.
No doubt. What kind of stuff do men go through in the divorce process? I mean, like, in the trenches, when they're in the process of divorce, what kind of things off the top of your head do men go through where you better have a circle of guys around you?
Is it all 5 stages of grief or just
grief is a great one.
Some of the real life stuff.
Yeah, grief's a lovely one, let me tell you. So yeah, that's a year-long series that we can go through. But what I'd say to that is there's one thing that we can control in this whole process, which is really, really difficult. The process is difficult for us in our masculine nature because we like to have a linear path. We like to know where we're going. We like to know what's going to happen. So having the uncertainty and having all of the challenges and the just not knowing what's going to happen is very hard for us. But there is one thing we can control, and that's how we react to the situation and our emotions, hopefully. And so that's where if you have somebody, if you have support and support, not just in friends, but support in therapy, hopefully a coach, if you have a spiritual church community as well, that is where then you can be able to talk and say, hey, I'm going through this. And it's amazing. It's when we have our group meetings and guys will be talking and we'll be sharing, and then one of them will say, yeah, so I was really upset about whatever it was last night, and I cried myself to sleep. You just hear a collective sigh of, oh no way, him too, which is a relief because we think that a lot of this stuff is exclusive to us that we're going through because we do isolate and we don't know that this is happening with somebody else. So again, that's just one example, but there's a myriad of things, and there's a myriad of issues from money challenges because finances are going to be difficult. It's just a simple math equation that I know most men will think about because we think about things in that way. So taking one household and two makes it more expensive. Like it's not difficult to figure out, but that and all kinds of other challenges. What's going to be like having to take care of the kids all the time, 24/7. How am I going to cook dinner? How am I going to get my work done? How am I going to pick up the kids? All kinds of different things. When you have a community, especially a community like the Divorce Dadvocate, where we've got other guys that are either contemplating it, going through it, or like myself, have been down it like a decade. So, and are immersed in it every day. You've got somebody that can just lift you up and help you through that process.
Yeah, and it sounds like you're kind of reinforcing some things we have said before of you need to have other guys around you, especially those in the work, whether they're currently in divorce or gone through it before, or just even like myself and never done it. Yeah. But having that outlet to just be able to say what you're feeling and what you're doing, so that you, number one, you realize you're not alone.
Yep.
So that you can go, oh, it's not just me. And then I know it's part of the feminine nature that they talk out their problems.
Right.
But for guys, especially in these traumatic events like divorce, having that outlet of being able to talk it out and release that energy helps to like let that steam off a bit and keeps the pot from exploding, if you will.
Right. Women are great at emoting, right? So and not necessarily communicating. Those are different things. Emoting and communicating.
Remember that. Write that down, y'all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, this is a big thing because the fallacy out there is that women are better communicators than men. That is absolutely not the truth. Women are very good at emoting. So emoting is like getting their emotions out. right? Letting people know what their emotions are, and then hopefully processing them in a healthy manner, instead of shutting down. Which again, if they have community and they are able to know, that is kind of a more natural process for them than it is for us. So
I like how you said hopefully.
Hopefully, well,
Ideally.
Processing it positively.
hopefully processing. I mean, it's not my
Very
experience
PC.
with the women that I've been with, but that's a whole different story, right? But and it's a learned skill. And I don't know about your guys' experiences growing up, but mine, that wasn't something that was taught to me on how to do that, and it wasn't taught to my sister, and so it wasn't something that my parents taught us, and we didn't learn that in school, and there's not a course out there that is teaching that. Well, there are now, but there wasn't when I was growing up. And so learning that, unfortunately, I had to learn it through going through this difficult divorce in this process. And not only my divorce, but getting involved in another relationship and not learning what I did wrong, and having that one fail, and having another one fail, and finally going, well, there's just one common denominator to all this. And that seems to be my head and my inability to figure this stuff out.
Well, I wouldn't feel bad, because it seems like, I know for me it was at least 3 or 4 before I realized I was a common denominator. So I mean, it does take a couple for us to like start looking in the mirror and go, oh wait, maybe it's me.
Yeah, but at least you've been smarter than to sign on the dotted line and say, well, let's just see what happens here.
Well, I mean, it's one of those things. Like, I know that like everything is a blessing and a curse, and for me to have that conversation with myself as a teenager after watching both my parents, married young and had me at 23, and then divorced, and then remarried in their mid 30s, and I had the talking with myself like, I think I'll skip that first part and try to grow up and mature before I have the whole thing. And now I'm in my mid 40s going, I might be ready. I think I could be ready. But you even having gone through maybe a less than healthy relationship, you still went through the relationship. There's still benefits to that too. So
yeah. Well, I'm curious. I'm curious then, what is the difference? So Kirk, you've been through it a couple times, and I've been through it, but then you made it. I wonder what the difference is between guys and why they would make that decision. Because what you just described in the beginning too, my parents were divorced, and I'm never ever going to get divorced. Right? I was going to make sure to do it right, and then my philosophy was love is going to conquer everything, and so I committed to this, and you get involved with somebody that's got significant issues, and you do everything and love and that's just not enough. And so I'm just curious, like, what the differences are in how you made that decision and you held off. I made the decision and I didn't hold off.
I like to say, and it's not something I'm proud of, but it's a reality looking back in the rearview mirror, that I've been in 2 weddings, but I've never been married.
That's a great quote.
I quite honestly, I've never actually been married to. First of all, I've never been the person that I wanted to be in my mind, my body, and my spirit all at one time, up until this phase of my life.
I think if you narrow it down, that's probably my answer too. Like,
right.
I was not going to sign on dotted line or go that way until I felt like I was prepared, which took a lot longer than I thought it would.
Yeah, but in my case, it manifested in like the next logical thing, or a people pleaser kind of thing. I wanted to be liked. I wanted to be loved. Mm-hmm. Part of my dysfunctionality was I wanted a woman to accept me and to validate me. Yeah, and that's a setup for a failure. By the way, if you're in that boat, trust me, get some help.
Write that down, gentlemen.
And so in my
I was
case,
the captain of that boat for a while.
So I mean, like I said, in my case, that's really what it comes down to. Like I said, I'm embarrassed to say that, but it's just an honest reflection of how that happened to me, or how I allowed myself to have that be part of my life that plays out.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. I think you're spot on with that. And there's a great book out there for anybody listening that talks about that. The first half of the book does, really learning who you are and what your values are, and going through that process of growing into who you are, what you want. And then the second half of the book is finding healthy relationships. And is it okay if I share what that
Sure.
is? Yeah, it's called The Tactical Guide to Women.
Yeah.
And it's written by a clinical psychologist right here in Denver, Colorado, Sean T. Smith. And it's really phenomenal. It's now at this stage of my life, I've read it and I reread it and reference it. But I think any young man listening should go run out and get that right now and read it before getting into a relationship.
Yeah, there's another book too, something we were talking about where it's actually called Love Is Not Enough, and it's by Mark Manson, who's also the author of The Subtle Art of Not Giving Enough. And that's something to look at too. As you get older, you realize, well, we all have this Disney fantasy fairy tale. Oh, we're going to ride off in the sunset and it's going to be all, rainbows and butterflies. But then you actually have those relationships. You realize, oh, wait, maybe love isn't enough. Maybe there needs to be compatibility. Maybe there needs to be communication. Maybe there needs to be these other aspects that create a more healthy relationship, which I think we'll get into a little bit more into our second segment here. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for a break here on Mad Men of Masculinity. We'll talk to you in a minute. I was afraid. I knew it was early, but I was afraid to get into anything else.
Yeah, that was like 3 minutes early. I was like, wait,
whatever.
Boom. Super producer Nicole. She'll make it all even.
She'll make it good.
It'll always be exactly this.
Well, I was looking at the timer over here is in the 25s. I'm like, I'm thinking 26. Probably should.
We're good.
That's all right, though. We make it as we go along, obviously.
That's all right.
All right, Kirk, I'll let you have this third segment since I've been talking so much. People miss your dulcet tones.
Your big mouth.
My big mouth. See, I've been hanging out with you too long.
That's the problem.
Are you guys going to be there on Wednesday night?
Yes. Well, I might be online because I don't know that I can make it there before 7. So, so I might be.
I'm planning on being there in person, but it may be online depending on how the day goes.
And Mama, that man, Mama, that man, Mad Men of Masculinity, 12:20 a.m. in the Mile High City and on the digitwebs everywhere. Shout out Crawford Broadcasting. Shout out super producer Nikki Nicole.
Thank you for letting
doing her thing. Call her Skittles sometimes because we don't know what color her hair is going to be or.
She's rainbow-licious.
So Kirk, is the interweb, digitweb, is that like a new thing like Snapbook or something? Because I'm still trying to figure this stuff out with the teenage kids. Okay.
It has something to do with computers, I think.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out where we're at. I know you got this streaming in like 15 different places.
Yeah, we just came up with all that.
We're worldwide. Not
digitwebs. Sure. Yeah, that's her thing.
Do we know what we're talking about? Oh, wait. I know what we're talking about. We're talking about divorce advocates and Jude Sandvall and all of his work in divorce because we just spent a month talking about men in divorce. And we even did an episode for the ladies like, hey, ladies, guess what? Even though you've been sold a bill of goods about divorce, there's some things you might want to think about.
So what were the conclusions of the ladies episode?
Oh, man, that's a great conclusion. Of the ladies?
I'm really interested. I'm always interested in hearing the other side because I hear one side all day long.
I don't even remember what we talked about like yesterday. I don't know what we talked about a couple weeks ago.
The basic thing was because since we are partnered with a lot of the kind of single social groups, which are a lot of the middle-aged single mothers out there, and they've been sold this bill of goods that, okay, you're the bomb, you're the boss babe, and you can do whatever you want. And they basically have this mindset that even though they have children and previous marriages, they should expect the same thing they were expecting as a 20-something with no kids and no baggage and no previous marriages and things like that. So we talked a lot about like you should be aware of this as guys, especially for guys that have been through marriage and divorce. We're looking at as a bottom line neurological person. There's some baggage and luggage there. There's some extra things I need to look at. I need to add into the equation, as it were. And so we look at the dating market and a lot of these ladies are frustrated. Like, why can't I find a guy to commit to me long-term? Why can't I find the guy to say, well, he's looking at you as almost like a business math equation. Okay, well, am I going to I know I'm not going to be priority. I know I'm probably 4th or 5th on the priority list. I know I'm going to have 100% responsibility with no authority. So maybe I should just dip my toe in the water and not go full in.
Right.
And at a certain point, at a certain age, guys' priorities shift around in terms of,
it's not all about the booty.
It's not all about, the surface. And quite honestly, at a certain age, peace has a higher value than anything else. And it's like, maybe I'll just choose to opt out and go sit on my couch and, peace means a whole lot. So to that point, to ladies of certain brackets in terms of ages and stages of life, the guy that was chasing you in your 20s and 30s that was impressed by 20 and 30-year-old stuff ain't impressed by that in his 40s and 50s and above. And so those are just some of the realities that went on in the ladies' conversation. I got a question for you, Jude. Is it cheaper to keep her?
Oh man,
come on, man.
Is it cheaper? So it
that one came out of left field.
Yeah, that depends on how you quantify cheaper. Right?
I'm leaving it to you, man. You're the
financial, or are you talking mental, emotional?
Yes.
So yes, right. Yeah, that's different. It's definitely not financially cheaper, but or it is financially cheaper, but mentally and emotionally, it's definitely not. It is a tax.
How do you mean that? I mean, taxes. What do you mean?
Well, unless you're going to really dig in, or you have a partner that is willing to dig in and to do the work and make the efforts to figure out what that unhealthy dynamic is, an unhealthy relational dynamic is that's happening, that's making the marriage miserable and making either or one of you want to get out, then you have to get out, because it's only going to be something that if you're the only one working on it, it's impossible. And then there's a whole myriad of other problems with that, and what kind of example you're setting for your kids, and what kind of relationship are they seeing, and what are you modeling, et cetera. And we oftentimes, and I did this too, worry about the kids and what you're going to do to them, and the effects that's going to have on them if you leave. But really, can also think about that from the flip side, which is what happens if you don't, what kind of example that's going to be. And we hear that a lot with women too, right, that are in abusive relationships, and maybe, but we don't hear that from the male perspective as well, there's as many unhealthy, mentally, emotionally challenged women that are in relationships and marriages as there are men that are as well. And so we don't get the message like, you got to take care of yourself, or you got to make sure that you're taking care of your needs and setting your boundaries. And you talked a little bit about it earlier, Kirk, in the sense that you just keep giving, and you weren't really in a marriage, you just showed up, or I don't remember what you said, but so yeah, and for me, I can go make more money, and we can all, as guys, we can go out, we can make more money. It might be hard, it might be resetting, it might be hard to do that later in life, but we can always go do that. Getting your mental, emotional health back, and that's a much longer road. At least that's been my experience.
So on the flip side of that question, there might be a guy that's listening to this that's thinking, man, I need to get out of here, man. I need to bounce. I need to throw up the deuces. I need to get up out of this bad boy. To that guy who hasn't made that jump, who's surely thinking, man, the grass is greener. Oh, man, when I get back into these streets, man, I'm going to be the man. Everything's going to be great. All these other kind of things. What is it going to cost a guy to go through the divorce process? And I used a vague term specifically.
That is, there's so many variables, and that's so subjective.
Is it the whole arm?
Absolutely.
The whole leg, or?
Yeah. It's impossible to give a stock answer to that, because every guy that comes to me for coaching and wants to know, or every guy that's contemplating divorce wants to know that, or shows up to our meetings and wants to kind of hear what's going on. It's impossible to say what that is. There's variables depending on what that unhealthy relational dynamic looks like, what your financial situation looks like, what the other person's going to go and do, and you just don't know.
What kind of things are financial?
No,
I'm gonna narrow it down.
You leave it vague, I'll give it vague. All right. I
pointed to the highway. Now I'm gonna talk about a lane in the highway, a couple of lanes in the highway,
and I'm gonna look for that off ramp.
Yeah. So you're the guy, man. You're the divorce advocate, man. You are the expert, man. What kind of things is a guy going to have to consider financially?
Well, that goes back to that equation we talked about.
Obviously,
earlier.
This is not legal advice, and you're not, none of that kind of stuff. Let's cover all that basis right now.
Well, and some of that also depends on the dynamic and what kind of relationship you had, and who's the provider. If you're in a traditional marriage where the man's the provider, there's going to be, and again, this depends on state statutes and where you're at, and even if somebody's listening from a different country, there's a huge difference all these variables. But if you're traditionally the provider, then there's going to be some addition. You're going to continue to provide for a certain period of time, even though you're separating households, and there's going to be those expenses that you're separating into two different households that you're going to be providing for as well. And so that's also it's an awfully difficult thing to do. And then losing the relationship, and then losing time with your kids. That was a big one for me. I didn't ever get married and have kids to just see them 50% of the time. And not that I'm not ever there. I'm always the father, but having that time with them 50% of the time was incredibly difficult and challenging. So there's going to be a huge tax, mentally, emotionally, financially, and it's just the nature of it. So I guess I say that to say, if you can figure things out, and going back to your last question, if you can figure things out, if you can make every effort to do that, and sometimes every one of your efforts is just not going to be enough, and you have to make the decision to get out. But think about all the time and resources and love that you put into this, and if you can figure out a way to stop divorce. And so that's always my goal too. Like, I've helped men through this process, but if I can save a marriage before and get a man to figure out how he can work with his wife, or get into relationship coaching to save that, it's much easier. Because then, if we want to talk about dating after divorce, that's a whole
Next segment.
Jason touched on that a little bit. Oh man, there are variables. That's like, you need a spreadsheet, you need like one of these AI computers, like, to figure out how to be able to do that.
And so I'm smiling because we came full circle, which is kind of my devious plot was when I first asked the first question.
Off ramp, basically right back on the expressway. Is that what you're saying?
Because that's kind of one of the places we left off at one of our last conversations. Is, man, fix it. Like, don't take that off ramp if you don't have to. My opinion was, spend all your money, sell your stuff if you need to, go into debt if you need to save your marriage. Save your marriage, man. Do counseling, do therapy, do retreats, do conferences, book. I don't care what it is, man, but do whatever you got to do to save it. Because either way, you're going to have a whole lot less of whatever it is after the fact. So we just went full circle.
There's something you talked about that it resonates with me, because I've seen it. When you're in a relationship and one of you decides to go do personal development, you want to improve your mindset, you want to improve your life, and the other partner doesn't join in. Gentlemen, if you're in a relationship and maybe you don't believe in personal development, or you think she drank the Kool-Aid, you better jump on that boat with her and take that ride. Because what tends to happen is, and you can probably speak on this, is that once one party in that relationship starts doing personal development, they start growing personally, internally, mentally, there's a divide is grown between the two of you. So you want to be on that raft with them. And a lot of times if we do it together, it will improve and save the relationship. Right.
And an unwillingness to do that typically is rooted in some sort of fear of the unknown, or what's going to happen, or that she's going to get better and look for somebody else, et cetera. But if you're doing that, it can be a relationship building opportunity. So yeah, I agree with you 100%. And the flip side of that also is, as the male, you should be leading the relationship anyway. So you should be the one working on your personal development, and you'll be amazed at how somebody's going to come alongside that and be, oh man, I really like that. I really want to do this. And yeah, maybe we can talk a little bit about leading the relationship. And that was, and look, I only say this, and I'm not calling anybody out. I am a little bit. But I learned this the hard way, right? That's one of the major reasons why my marriage failed.
Lack of male leadership.
Yep.
Yeah, that's powerful, man. That's powerful. Speaking of powerful, let's do a powerful break. A powerful one, like a power break.
Power break.
We're gonna do push-ups now.
8-count bodybuilders. Hey, we're gonna take a break. Mad Men of Masculinity. Mad Men Radio, 1220 a.m. in the Mile High City. We'll be right back.
All right, push-up contest.
I ain't doing no bodybuilders.
Good stuff, man.
I did basic. I ain't doing that no more.
Fantastic stuff, man. Should we finish with the after divorce?
Yeah, let's talk about dating. That's
dating after divorce.
That's been a lot.
That's why we had to throw that ladies one in there when we were basically talking about guys in divorce, and then we were like, "Oh, ladies, you have to understand, it's not the grass is not greener." Yeah. And this is what guys, especially if they've been through the puppet show, this is what they're looking at.
And it would, I think, it'd be a great episode to get a lady on that has been dating after divorce and talk with her and somebody, and maybe I've got a relationship coach, and she's probably in her 40s also, and she talks about dating after divorce also.
Yeah.
And she's the one that I refer my relationship people to, and she'd have some good comments, and she would agree with a lot of what you guys are talking about too, and giving the ladies a wake up call, because she's not the Disney relationship coach. She's the one that actually wants people to save their relationship. And
yeah, we spend so much time, like, you got to understand, ladies, that the feminist movement has been bought and sold by corporate America, and a lot of that stuff you're pushing out is not helping you at all. It's just
no, it's not what it was intended to be originally, which was positive for society, and now it's detrimental.
Now it's us over them.
Yeah, and it's
not balanced.
No, well, it's not helping anybody. It's just creating division.
All right, you ready?
And we're back. Madmen of Masculinity, KLDC, 1220 AM in the Mile High City, and we are still here with Mr. Jude. He hasn't left us yet, so we haven't scared him off.
Yeah, he ain't left. He ain't about that. He dropped the truth bomb and go back in. Hey, I got one. DAD. Dating after divorce.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking
Just
about.
call me daddy.
Yeah, let's line up on the runway here, man, on our initial descent into the airport here.
I think that was my online dating profile.
What?
Just call me daddy?
Yeah.
Just is it?
No, I'm
creeper.
just kidding.
You creeper. I knew you were creepy. Man, we got a creeper in the house. Just call me daddy.
Can I borrow that one?
Mine was Chocolate Thunder. Anyhow,
That's much better.
Hey, baby,
This is not chocolate.
what would
daddy.
you do for a client? Anyhow, all right, bring us back in here. All right, see what happens, man, when I hang out with you fellas, man. This is real man talk here. Dating after divorce. Jude, man, guy gets divorced. Now all of a sudden, man, he's single, ready to mingle. Man, he's gonna get him a little online dating profile, maybe 6 of them. You know, he's gonna get out here, man, and he's gonna be thick, just pushing him off. He's gonna be doing the Heisman. There's gonna be so many women just coming after him, man, just pushing him off. Oh, get off of me, get off of me. It's gonna be great, man. All these great options and choices. Isn't that right?
Just like the movies.
Nice.
Absolutely.
Just like some Matthew McConaughey.
Exactly, because we all got all the game Matthew McConaughey has. So when we're on Tinder, we're all gonna be swiping right. Trust me.
All right, all
It's
right,
gonna
all
be
right.
falling out of your pockets, and you'd be like,
That's got to be how it is, though, man. Like seriously, isn't that how it is?
Exactly.
Really?
No, not at all. Man, it is. Yeah, it is. It's interesting, and again, I'm speaking from the perspective of being a dad, and it creates a whole different dynamic dating with kids. And I described, and I don't have to describe again for the dads listening out there. You're working, you're picking up kids from school. You got to get homework done. You got to get dinner ready. You got to pay the bills, and maybe you want to try to work out and keep yourself looking semi-respectable, and do all the other self-care stuff that you're supposed to do, and then also try to go on a date. So
when do you sleep?
There's exactly, sometimes to the date. I got some stories about that, but so yeah, it's an interesting dynamic, but it can be very successful. And if you've done, come full circle to the beginning, if you've done the work, you've made the effort to really learn about what you want, you can refine that down, and you can find healthy women that want to do that too, and that want to date with intention, know exactly what they want to do, how they want to go, and where they want to proceed with in dating. So, but the challenge is getting there and figuring that out, and working with a dating coach, working with a relationship coach. I would highly recommend, because there's so many pitfalls. And when I mean pitfalls, I mean there can be some serious pitfalls these days dating in the world that we're in. And you've got kids, and again, I'm speaking from experience, unfortunately, but you've got kids that you got to be really careful with, and you got to be careful with what happens in your personal life, because it does impact your family life. And so, yeah, it's just multifaceted, but it can be fun, and it can be fun if you have the right mentality and the right perspective.
What about if she has kids?
But then it's multiplied.
Multiple factors of life. 10.
Well, and again, so this, this is one of those multiple facets, and that to me would be attractive. For some guys, that might not be attractive, and you get this whole argument of dating single moms versus not dating single moms, and the positives, the negatives. For me, it adds a perspective from somebody that, and I've dated both, so I've been in the dating after divorce world for almost a decade now. Done online. I mean, I've done most everything, and so for me, I want somebody that has kids, that understands the dynamic of kids, and can be somebody that is a positive female role model, female mother role model with my daughters. Now, that might not be for everybody, and that also kind of depends on the age of your kids too. If you've got older kids, and that might not be something that you want. So it just depends.
And in the immortal words of Rod Tidwell, single mom is a secret thing, Barry.
Don't shoplift the booty.
Shoplift the booty from the single mom. The words of Rod Tidwell. Yeah.
Well, and I know today that maybe there's less shoplifting going on than we think. There's probably more freebies given out, but there's just it's just a challenging situation on both sides. And I think that's what gets lost in the mix, is that either the ladies think it's all easy for the guys, or the guys think it's all easy for the ladies. But there's challenges on both sides, and it's something we need to look at, especially as it gets so multifaceted with kids, and then you got exes and co-parenting, and then you still have jobs, you still have dreams, you still have careers. So many aspects, and that's why we push so hard. Like, maybe get broke trying to fix it, before you go down that road.
Single parenting is not easy, period, whether you're a single dad or a single mom. And so having compassion around that for each other is a really, really important thing. And I would say the number one thing in dating after divorce is having a high level of communication. Just knowing yourself and what you want, and having those intentions, because you don't have a lot of time. And so I can tell you hundreds of first dates that I've had. And it got to the point where it's just, okay, this is not going to be something that, and thanks, it was great meeting you, etc. We're just not a match. That is a great thing to do, because you just don't have the time. But then if you get further into it, having that level of communication to where you're upfront about who you are, what you want, what your process is, etc., is going to be very, very important.
Yeah. And one thing I've noticed almost exclusively, definitely way more than 8 out of 10, probably more than 9 out of 10 times. Very commonly, does it happen where the man that goes through the divorce finds himself remarried or in a long-term relationship before the ex-wife, meaning the ex-husband tends to move on before the ex-wife in terms of that next long-term relationship or that next marriage. And I think that's important, because I think for guys, we need to get our poop in a group while we can. When you're in that divorce phase and you're going through your stuff, fix your stuff so that you don't get into another dysfunctional relationship. If you have a habit that you're not proud of consuming in front of her, or that causes a problem in your relationships, fix it. I mean, if you have something in your life that is not where it needs to be, your health, your wealth, your mental state, your spiritual state, whatever that is, fix it. Because the last thing you want to do is move on and get another one. This ain't DJ Khaled, and another one. You don't want that. So fix it, get your poop in a group, because it's absolutely, from what I've seen, experienced, personal and otherwise, it's very likely that you're going to end up in another relationship, probably, and surely another marriage as a result, probably before your ex-wife, but you don't want to repeat the same mistakes.
Well, yeah. And why do you want to go through that pain again?
No.
And that's a great point that you made too. And it's a fallacy that guys get over relationships faster than women. It's absolutely it's the opposite as far as what I can see. It takes men longer. And then to your point also about why women will find somebody, usually they're the ones that are doing the breakup or filing for divorce. So they've had this time frame and this process way before, because it's not like, at least most of them that I talked to, just woken up that day and said, well, let's get a divorce. They've thought through this. So they've had that time. And so for us, we get blindsided. and it's harder for us to get over the relationship and figure things out. So that expands that time frame for us to get back into something. And then you add into trust issues and all the mental emotion issues and the inability to deal with it and figure it out and build community and find resources and all that stuff. It just expands that time frame.
And I think one of the things that happens too, and it's maybe something guys need to look at prior to their first marriage, is because a lot of times they learn so much through that process that now they're more aware of who they are and they're more communicative and they're more expressive of that. And one of the things that I'm glad you mentioned it before, but having some communication training, having some maybe nonviolent communication, learning how to speak and how to have conversations, how to have difficult conversations, and do it in a way that's not this argumentative or angry, mean kind of way that we did on the playground as kids, but having
or we learn from our parents.
There's been a lot of that, a lot of this passed down aggression and trauma from parents and grandparents and on down the line. So it's up to us to fix that and become the better people. But talk a little bit about your experience with guys who have either not learned or have actually gone, okay, I'm going to take these classes and learn how to communicate and how that's affected them down the road.
Yeah. See, here's the thing that we figure out with these unhealthy dynamics is that they're not just isolated to our romantic relationships. So I was very codependent, and then what I found out, it was when I started to realize that and learn to communicate better and state what my needs were and set boundaries and do all that stuff, that, oh man, look, I've got the same dynamic in my business relationships. Oh man, look, I got that same dynamic with my children. Oh man, I got the same dynamic with my guy friends. So it's important, and this goes back to what we were talking about earlier, which is we're not taught this stuff. Unless you have, and even like if you have really great parents and they're conscientious, some stuff gets missed, and then we just figure out how to get along in life. And this becomes an adaptive behavior that we take into our adult life, and unless we identify it and say, okay, now I want, like Kirk's saying, do something about it. I've identified that this is something this is probably not the best in my life. Okay, I got to do something about it. And look, we got a lot of that stuff, and it's not your fault. We just learn this stuff, and that's okay. So just take one, figure out one, identify it, say, okay, this is something I'm going to work on, I'm going to get better at. And then, post divorce, if you're starting that dating process, you start to refine yourself as being the better man that you want to be. And the man that you want to be showing up in that relationship, you want somebody else to be attracted to. And hopefully she's doing the same thing, right? She's going through it. She's figuring out how she can be the better person, and how she can be a better girlfriend or wife or mother or whatever. And if you guys are doing that, and so this is another one of the values that I found in wanting to date somebody, was somebody that valued personal development and self-development. And so that's somebody that it's a must for me to be with, because I know I will always be doing that. I will be always striving to be better and better today than I was yesterday. I need to be with somebody that has that same mentality. And I learned that the hard way, right? A lot of people, just men and women, are not don't want to do that.
They just don't know any better.
They don't know any better. They don't want to do it. And so,
well, that brings up a question, something I even mentioned at Last Be Men, and we were talking about when you're going through these things, having conversations with your kids and including them to a certain degree, because I know in my experience, I was not included. And so I made up my own story.
Yeah. That's it. So I always say, and this is counterintuitive, if you are in the middle of a divorce or you're just post-divorce, that it is a huge opportunity for you. And it's an opportunity for you to model something that you could not otherwise model for your children. It is going to be one of the most challenging things. It's voted, I think, one of the top 2 most challenging things you're ever going to go through in your life. And if you can get through it and you can model it in a healthy way for your children, man, the message to them is that no matter what life throws at you, you can react to it and behave and handle it in a manner that is healthy and positive. And wow, I mean, there's few other circumstances that you have the ability to teach that lesson to your kiddos with.
It's a great opportunity to hit the reset button on your personal. A lot of us were raised by women, right? A lot of us don't know what it is to be a man and don't know what kind of man we are and we want to be.
Yeah.
It's a great opportunity to discover yourself, to learn, to grow, and to be the man you want to be. And then ideally, that will bring to you the woman that you've always wanted.
It will.
Hey, Jude, how do people get a hold of you, man?
So the best way to get a hold of me is at the website at thedivorceddadvocate.com. And we've got all the resources there for dads. We've got the podcast, we've got the blog, we've got live meetings, we've got group meetings, we've got coaching. We're going to be launching our membership site here November 1st, which is going to have all kinds of phenomenal resources within the membership community as well. So thedivorceddadvocate.com.
Thank you very much for joining us and coming on this crazy show with us too.
You're a beast, man. You're a beast.
Thank you so
I
much.
look like a beast.
Well, yeah.
It's a good beast.
It's
Remember,
beast.
like and subscribe for Mad Men Masculinity on Facebook and on YouTube. Tune in Saturdays at 8 and Wednesdays at 6 on KLDC 1220 AM. Kirk, you got any final messages for the people?
Get your poop in a group.
Learn how to talk to people. Learn how to talk, man.
Communication is
Learn how to
key.
communicate.
Yes.
Lord have mercy. That's all. That's most of what you can do in marriage. So learn how to do it.
And with that, Mad Men out.